We're going to talk to Queer Atheist who is calling in. Not queer. Now, here's the thing. Last time you called in, Queer Atheist, was on the Halloween special, and the call-in screener for your name, just put queer. So I said, "Hey, queer, you're live on the air," and everybody was giving me shit for that because it sounded like it was like a derogatory thing. It was like I was just reading the name. That wasn't anything wrong there. Queer Atheist was not on there. So Queer Atheist, you're live on Truth Wanted. No, what's up? Good to hear from you.
It's my Twitter handle, so it's easy to use and easy to remember. First of all, I wanted to say I read your announcement on Twitter, and you're going to do fine. You're going to be great at whatever you do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Anthony, your essay approach has really changed a lot for me, and I really appreciate it. I want to say that the stuff that you put out for COVID was especially helpful. And whatever you need help with for launching SE into the wider world, I'm here to help. So whatever I can do to put my skills at nunchuckery to use, I will definitely help out. But
awesome. Thank you.
My question for the night. Yeah. And I mean that sincerely. I love SE. So whatever I can do to help, I will. My question was, what are your thoughts, just in general, and it's a really quick one, on the term New Atheism or the concept of New Atheism as put forward by like Dawkins and Dennett and Sam Harris and Hitchens? Whenever New Atheist is thrown out to me, I kind of feel like it's a pejorative, and I don't accept the label, but I'm curious as to what other people think.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you have any thoughts, Dan?
I have some thoughts. So, the New Atheist label, from what I've seen from people who have really written about this quote unquote New Atheist phenomenon, I agree with you. Tend to use it in the pejorative, but also when they do use it in the descriptive, I find that it tends to be people who are outside the atheist movement, trying to construct it as a category. In other words, people who aren't atheists trying to classify atheists into a collective, which is hilarious because if there's one thing atheists are good at, it's not agreeing on fucking shit. They're really bad about it, actually, historically speaking, in our movement. We're not good at it. And if you don't believe me, just go to twitter.com and just have at it, because there's all kinds of conversations happening every single day. Why this doesn't really work. But of course, you have to look at the demographics of atheists particularly in the United States, but also worldwide, and see that, yes, there has been a change, and not only a change in people's religious belief, but also in the culture in which we talk about beliefs. And there are people online who identify as atheists and who have kind of been part of this thing called what could be described as the atheist movement, and who talk about atheism and who do it in different ways, right? So like, you have to acknowledge that that's a thing. Because when people talk about it and say, oh, there's no like culture to atheism, well, I mean, there is, but it's very loose. And it doesn't mean that everybody who identifies as an atheist identifies with that as well, because it gets very particular, because it's so individualized. I think that's the problem with making these big classifications, because right now, in particular, I'll just point out the elephant in the room. There's a lot of people who talk about Richard Dawkins in not a very negative light right now. Don't get me started either. Right? But like, what was the thing? He was like this big figure for a long time. Him and other people who were kind of this leaders of this so-called New Atheist movement. So it's really fascinating to see how there has been this kind of churning in the sense of leadership. And I guess I could say I am in it now, right? Like, I'm obviously an activist, right? So I'm obviously talking about it. And from an internal perspective, I've seen a great change in what people generally think of as, who is leading this thing. They don't think of folks who are making appearances on Fox News arguing with Bill O'Reilly at night. They're thinking about big YouTubers, and they're thinking about, people who are, again, just online making podcasts, talking about this stuff. And they're also, atheists now are much more involved in other social issues and this kind of umbrella as well. You know, you see a lot of people making this sort of intersectionality now, which was also a big deal if you look at conversations online like 10 years ago, whether or not that was appropriate, because people were saying, well, atheism should only be about religious stuff. It shouldn't be about sexuality stuff. It shouldn't be about, you know, any of these other things. The truth is, as individual people, we can decide what we want to talk about and what we think is important. And religion is inevitably going to be related to a lot of these other issues. So I do think it's within the realm of appropriate conversation, but I haven't really heard anybody use the term new atheist anymore, besides like grumpy apologists online or something. You know, I don't think the general public really knows about the term. And I don't think as atheists, we should really care, because we can't even fucking decide what the word atheist means half the time, let alone whatever the hell new atheist means. Right.
Or if rocks are atheists.
Or if rocks are atheists, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, did you have any thoughts, Anthony?
Yeah. Just a few that, like, I sort of came onto the atheist scene like around 2012, 2013, meaning the new atheists of the Four Horsemen, and then Boghossian with his book, like that stuff caught my attention, and it really appealed to me because I didn't see any of it in the culture. There was nothing about atheism until those guys broke down those barriers as far as I was concerned. Now, what's happened is there's been this influx of people getting into the atheist community. And you mentioned YouTube, and let's not forget TikTok. Like, I was at a convention a month ago in Salt Lake City of ex-Mormons, and the ex-Mormon TikTok scene is amazing.
Yes.
And so I think those guys, like, they were useful in their day. They really opened the door for this influx of content creators. And the convention that we were just at 2 weeks ago, Dan, the Faithless Forum. Yeah. There were, and I'm going to call them younger. There were these younger atheist content creators who are doing so much good work, and they're calling attention to some big problems that we're facing. And the cool thing from my perspective is they also saw the value of SE. They saw the value of not just agreeing to disagree, but challenging respectfully what it is you're hearing. Yeah. And I think the new atheists were all about like calling it out and ridiculing it. And there's this cartoon that every once in a while I surface. I'll retweet it again tonight. But it's like, you know, there's a theist saying something like, you know, shut up. And the new atheist says, no. And the new atheist says, why do you think that? And I think that sort of encapsulates it. So I think that it's been this progression, and who knows what the next wave of atheism will be. Maybe it will actually be sort of like almost like a whimper, meaning, oh, there goes my doorbell. I'm sorry. I don't know why we're getting delivery right now, but I almost lost my train of thought. But like, maybe what's going to happen is it will be so commonplace to be an atheist in the United States. That's my perspective. I'm coming from the US, that we'll look back at some of the efforts that were made to popularize atheism to the point that it's at today. And like, did we really have to do that? But that's what seemed to be necessary to get to the point we're at today. And I think it's really tempting to kind of like kick those guys to the curb and everything, but they had their place. They had their time. When we compare them to the standards of today, they seem woefully out of date. Like, they are out of touch. They are fucking out of touch. But I don't think would be where we're at today. I don't think I'd be here today if it wasn't for those guys. And I feel like I'm sort of in the center of it. Like, I've seen the new atheists, and I see like these younger people coming up, and just taking atheism and normalizing it to the next level. And it's been like a treat to watch. It's been a roller coaster. Don't get me wrong, but
I think definitely, I think we can say that because we're on the inside. Right. We're seeing the changes that happen internally. I do wonder what the external public really thinks about atheist world. Because here's something that's new. Here's something that's new that wasn't a thing before, which is everybody on the internet is much more comfortable with labeling themselves and associating themselves with all new kinds of labels. There is an entire movement that you've rightly pointed out of ex-Mormonism, of ex-Christianity, of ex-Islam that is entirely separate from the atheist movement. It has developed into its own phenomenon. Right. And why is that the case? Well, they have not always, there's a couple reasons, but one big thing is they have not always felt welcome in the atheist space, because when they think of atheists, they think of a neck-bearded guy on Reddit getting mad at somebody and calling somebody stupid for believing in God. Like that stereotype is still very prevalent in people's minds, and that that nuance in the discourse sometimes isn't still there, which I think the atheist community has gotten a lot better at. I'll put as an asterisk. In my opinion, has gotten better at, because there's definitely some people that aren't as good. But like I think in the content space that I work in, I think people are pretty good at it, right? And so like I think that that has affected things, right? I think that polemic, that angry, that going out there busting heads kind of atheism, now even though it's out of favor, it has left repercussions on our movement that we are still dealing with the effects of, and we'll have to continue to deal with the effects of it if we really want to be taken seriously in the internet space as a whole, as we're now sharing our space with other folks who are going to organize themselves in their own communities. I think we have to legitimize ourselves by continuing to commit to, and whether it's an SE approach or just a better approach to discourse than we have been, for sure. But those are my thoughts on that. Queer atheist, did you have any takeaways?
Yeah, no, I was just going to agree with you. I think that, and I agree with Anthony as well. Like there's I think that we do owe that group a debt of gratitude for at least starting the conversation. But at some point it becomes kind of like your old racist grandma that you're like, okay, you know what? You're past your prime. You just,
oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's what I think. I mean, like Dawkins is putting out all this transphobic stuff, and it just does not end. And I kind of reject that. So anyway, I just wanted to feel you out on that and hear your thoughts. Anthony, I will hook up with you on Twitter because I really want to be a part of whatever you do. So
okay, awesome. I'll look for you on Twitter then.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Queer Atheist, thanks so much for dropping into the show. And thank you for the kind words.